Hello all, and welcome to Variable Scope. As you've seen in our previous videos, we've come up to a situation where we're looking at our variables now, and one of the last things in the design checklist, or one of the sort of the last things, was actually talking about variable scope. What is the scope of the variables? Up to this time, we haven't discussed that, and that's why we stopped right there. But now it's time to actually address it, especially for the situation we have at hand with the example we're going through. So in this particular video, what we'll do is we'll talk about what scope means and what's the different types of scope, okay? And then we'll go back to our design, identify each variable and its scope, and then show you later on how to apply that to an actual program. All right? So as you notice, everything up to this point, we have declared our variables within the event procedure. So if we sit back and kind of look at our programs, when we go into click our buttons, right, I tell you to declare your variables. They've all been right there. Remember, when we declare a variable, we use dim, we are allocating memory, okay? In other words, we're taking up RAM, right, and the computer. So we're telling the computer, allocate some RAM for us to be able to store temporarily some content that we can hold on to for our processing. That's the whole idea of a variable, and that's what declaring a variable means, that we're allocating memory. The question is, so how long does it stay in memory? That means, so we allocated this memory with our program. How long does it stay there? Does it stay there forever? Do we allocate that memory forever and ever, and our computers are going to get slower and slower because we took up memory? Is it there till we reboot? Or what happens? How long does it stay there? The answer is it stays in memory until the end of the procedure. That's how long it stays in memory. So the computer, in a sense, is managing our resources. This is a good thing, right? We want to make sure that we don't take up memory for no apparent reason. And if we're done with what we originally used it for, we should let it go, okay? So the next program can utilize it or whatever, so our computers don't slow down. So how this works is that the computer is managing our resources and ensuring we don't hold up resources after we're completed with them. The term for this is scope. That's what that means. Scope is the lifetime of a variable within memory. So in our programs, when we allocate memory, okay, there's a lifetime there, and that's what scope means. Up to this point, we've been dealing with one type of scope in our programs. You don't even know it. That's been called local scope, okay? So there's actually different levels of scope. We're going to talk about two of them right now. Later on in this course, we'll bring up a third one. There's actually more than that, but that's enough for this particular course to actually get used to, okay? But right now, for now and for the next several weeks, all you need to concern yourself with are two different types of scope, all right? Local is the first one. Local scope means the variable was declared in a procedure. So that button click, that's a procedure, right? If it's declared there, it will be released from memory once the procedure has completed all of its scope. Let's get out of this. Let's go back to one of our little programs here. And there it is right there, sorry. And let's go back to this radius program. In this case here, we declared these two variables, right? These were one was input, one was output. Because we declared them within the procedure, this button sub right here, that is local scope. That's what I mean by that. And so how this will work is the computer will come in, allocate this memory, do its work, move the text box to the input variable to calculate the output, display it all, and once it hits end sub, it will release those variables from memory, meaning they're gone. The content's gone, everything is gone. And that's actually a good thing. Now we don't have to worry about it. Now we're not taking up the computer's resources for no apparent reason. All right, let's get back to our PowerPoint. And let's see. I'll just kind of stay right here, okay? All right, so up to this point, we've been dealing with one type of scope, and that's local. We talked about that. Local scope means the variable was declared in a procedure, all right? So whatever was in the procedure before, this is what I just repeated, will be gone, okay? If we click the button again, meaning we come back to our program, So the next time we click a button, if we clicked it again, it will go ahead and do the same thing. It will allocate the memory, basically for a very short period of time, right? Do our work and then release it, okay? That's all we care about. The computer, my program needs space to hold values as I'm processing it. But once I'm done with it, get rid of it. And yeah, all this probably happens in a nanosecond, for God's sakes, very, very quick. But I'm not holding up memory. All right, I'm sorry, I'm gonna go back to this again. All right. So, let's see. Yep, so whatever was there, well, we did that. I'm sorry, I'm not actually doing this. So that's great, right? Okay, yay us, we know how to do that. But there may be times in this when we're programming where we don't want to delete that content. We need it there for some reason. We might need it for the next button click or for future processing in another procedure. And so if we have that situation, what do? We're deleting it every time and it's gone, but I want to keep it. So if you identify variables that need to actually stay around in memory, okay, that's going to be those variables are going to be called, here, I'm going to fix this, type this up quickly. Those variables are going to be called class level variables. So if you need to hold it in memory beyond that procedure, meaning after the button's clicked and it actually displays the output, you don't want to delete those variables or that content, we can actually define them as class level scope. All right? This is actually hard doing this. Class level variables do not get removed on every click or at the end of the procedure. They stay in memory until the program ends, meaning you hit the exit button or the little X up in the corner or whatever, you close the program. Once you close the program, they're then removed from memory. That's a good thing too. It still doesn't stay in memory, but until you close that program, they are in memory. So you got to remember that also, okay? So how do we differentiate them in a program? We're going to see this by example a little bit later on, but I'm going to tell you what the answer is, okay? All local scope variables are declared within a procedure, okay? All class level scope variables are declared outside all procedures. So what do I mean by that? And again, we'll talk about this a little bit more is, see how I declared these within a procedure? That's local. If I was to declare this, and you actually see my little constant up there outside the procedures, it's now class. It's just that simple. Based upon where you declare your variables, it determines what the scope is, class level scope or local scope. All right? Does that make any sense? I hope it does. All right. But before we dive into it programmatically, we need to go back and look at our design one more time. Because what you want to do is now when you define what the variables are, okay, and what the data types are, the next step in that the design checklist was to determine what is the scope. And you're going to do that based upon understanding what the problem's asking you to do and when you don't need, how can I say that? I'm going to say that differently. When you're finished with the contents of that particular variable. It's actually pretty easy. Sometimes you might, have to challenge yourself and think about it a little bit, but most of the time it's very obvious what scope it should be. All right, so let's go back. We'll go in the next video, we'll go back to our design and we'll determine that, and then we'll get into actually writing the program and showing you how this all works. Okay?